The financial system of the Russian Federation is currently exhibiting definitive signs of a profound and systemic crisis of confidence. This is not an abrupt, acute event, but rather a sustained, large-scale withdrawal of capital by the Russian population. This trend is driven by a convergence of factors: the escalating economic demands of the war in Ukraine, a deeply ingrained historical mistrust of the nation's banking sector, and the Kremlin's increasingly stringent capital controls. The situation is evolving into a slow-motion bank run, which in turn establishes a feedback loop that threatens the solvency of the very financial institutions the state relies upon to finance its military-industrial complex. To comprehend the full depth of the current financial panic, it is essential to look back at the formative economic trauma of 1998. For the generation of Russians who now control the majority of the nation's private capital, the 1998 financial collapse is not a distant historical footnote. It remains a core memory of life savings being annihilated virtually overnight when the government defaulted on its domestic debt and the banking system imploded. Financial institutions physically shut their doors, freezing accounts and decimating the burgeoning middle class. This event established a profound, foundational belief. In times of national crisis, the Russian financial system is not a secure safe harbor, but rather a trap. Current analysis suggests that the Kremlin's present-day actions, particularly the prioritization of military spending above all other economic concerns and the implementation of coercive financial measures, are activating this financial muscle memory. Public trust, which is a non-negotiable prerequisite for any modern fractional reserve banking system, is disintegrating. This psychological factor is just as significant as any macroeconomic indicator, as it dictates public behavior regardless of official state reassurances. By 5 p.m. October 27th, an analysis of financial data from Russian regulatory authorities clearly illustrates the tangible impact of this crisis of confidence. The rate of cash withdrawals from the nation's banks has been accelerating, reaching record levels. In June, cash withdrawals reportedly hit 216 billion rubles. This high volume of withdrawals was sustained through July. By October 26th, only 2/3 of the way through the current month, withdrawals had already reached 180 billion rubles. What makes these figures critically significant is the macroeconomic context in which they are occurring. The Russian central bank has maintained an exceptionally high benchmark interest rate, which currently stands at 17% and was 20% just a month prior. In a stable economy, such high interest rates would normally trigger a massive influx of saving, as citizens seek to capitalize on what one analyst noted as crazy returns. The fact that the opposite is happening is a severe indicator of systemic instability. The Russian public is making a clear calculation. The risk of the bank failing and seizing their principal entirely outweighs the promised 17% return. They are no longer concerned with the return on their money, but rather the return of their money. This flight from digital rubles to physical cash is a classic precursor to a full-blown liquidity crisis. At approximately 4:15 a.m., reports continue to surface regarding widespread disruptions to Russia's internet infrastructure. This has become a factor that is now actively compounding the financial panic. The Kremlin has been systematically cracking down on internet access, blocking or throttling popular communication platforms like Telegram and WhatsApp. The stated official pretext for these shutdowns is the neutralization of Ukrainian drone operations, which authorities claim use the Russian internet for targeting. However, the operational effect of these shutdowns, even as Ukrainian drones reportedly continue to hit their targets, has been a severe disruption of the civilian digital economy. This represents a significant multi-domain failure for Russian state planners. In their attempt to control the information domain, they have inflicted a critical injury on their own financial domain. In a digital world, if citizens cannot access their banking applications, their money is, in effect, frozen. This technological uncertainty, combined with the existing political distrust, creates a powerful incentive for the public to withdraw all necessary funds as physical cash. The Kremlin's proposed solution, a new state-controlled messaging app called Max, has been met with widespread public suspicion. The population assesses this as a tool for state surveillance, which further erodes trust in state-run institutions, including the banks. This has led to public protests, although small, by younger Russians, indicating a growing dissatisfaction with the state's tightening grip. The public-facing bank run, however, is only one half of the crisis. The other, more systemic component lies within the balance sheets of the banks themselves. Since the launch of the special military operation in 2022, the Kremlin has effectively forced Russian banks to underwrite the war effort. This was achieved by mandating the issuance of preferential loans, which are massive, high-risk lines of credit to companies central to the military-industrial complex. These include manufacturing plants, mining conglomerates, and steel producers. These loans were not issued based on sound financial risk assessment. They were politically mandated to keep the war economy operating. The bill for this policy is now coming due. Reports indicate that many of these same defense-related companies are now on the verge of default. They are laying off workers, cutting work hours, and formally requesting that banks extend their loan terms, as they will be unable to service their debts at the end of the year. This has created a classic insolvency crisis for the banks. Their liabilities, which are the deposits of Russian citizens, are being withdrawn at a record pace. Simultaneously, their assets, the preferential loans to war companies, are becoming worthless as they are now non-performing. The banks are now caught. They lack the liquid capital to pay their depositors because their own debtors cannot pay them. Consequently, a number of banks are turning to the Russian government, the same entity that forced them to make the bad loans, and are demanding a massive bailout. This creates a dangerous debt spiral, with the state effectively forced to print money to cover the bad debts it created, which further fuels hyperinflation. Morning reports around 9:30 a.m. provided third-party observational data confirming the severe inflationary pressures and economic distortions that impact the daily lives of Russian citizens. An account from a Chinese tourist in a major Russian city provided the following metrics. 1 month of parking in a residential area costs 3,600 rubles. This is contrasted with the reported monthly salary for a local elementary school teacher, estimated at 20,000 to 30,000 rubles. A single bottle of water was priced at 250 rubles. These figures are not merely evidence of inflation, they are evidence of a profound economic distortion. The cost of a non-productive asset, parking, now constitutes over 15% of a skilled professional's monthly income. This indicates that the state is funneling all resources and subsidies toward the war effort, while the civilian economy is being subjected to severe inflation and high taxes to fund it. This anecdotal evidence is supported by broader economic data. Russia is reportedly facing a petrol shortage, equivalent to 20% of its standard monthly supply, which is disrupting logistics. In the business sector, the RSBI index, a key metric measuring the business activity of small and medium-sized enterprises, has, for the first time since late 2022, fallen below the 50-point threshold, indicating a formal contraction. Furthermore, industrial demand for steel has reportedly fallen by 15% over 10 months, signaling a significant downturn in the non-defense economy. By 10 p.m., as the crisis deepens, the state's response has become entirely coercive. Instead of addressing the underlying economic fundamentals, the Kremlin is opting to construct a financial iron curtain to trap all remaining capital within its borders. This strategy is being executed on 3 primary fronts. First, political expropriation. 3 days ago, the state reportedly seized another 500 million rubles from a Russian official. This act is not about law, but about political theater and expropriation. The strategic signal sent to other Russian elites and oligarchs is that their wealth is not safe, regardless of their perceived loyalty. This, in turn, accelerates their attempts at capital flight. Second, elite capital control. To counter this elite-driven flight, Russia has limited the movement of gold out of the country to 100 grams per person. This is a direct attempt to stop oligarchs from converting their liquid assets into gold bars, a primary vehicle for moving wealth. A 100-gram limit, valued at approximately $15,000 is tactically insignificant for an oligarch, described by one observer as 1 hour of jet fuel. It is a measure of desperation, not effective policy. Third, public capital control. The most significant move was reported just 2 nights ago. The Russian Duma has reportedly granted Vladimir Putin the power to ban any foreign currency transactions by Russian citizens. If he declares that Russians cannot trade rubles for US dollars, any attempt to do so will become a criminal offense. This legislative maneuver is the final piece in sealing the Russian economy. The state's objective is clear: to prevent all capital, from the oligarchs' billions to the citizens' savings, from leaving the country. This trapped capital can then be systematically inflated away or directly seized to fund the war effort. This strategy, however, comes at the cost of the state's social contract. To fund the military, the government is now cutting social programs, including reports of cutting payments to pregnant schoolgirls in some regions, and failing to pay teacher salaries in others. New taxes, such as a recently announced hike on beer, are being implemented to extract any remaining wealth. The final metric of this crisis is psychological. Sales of antidepressants in Russia have hit their highest level since the war began in 2022. This is a stark indicator of a declining societal morale, mirroring the financial and economic deterioration of the state itself. The Kremlin is locked in a feedback loop. The war demands money. The methods used to get that money destroy the economy, and the collapsing economy creates public panic, which further destabilizes the state's ability to fund the war. October 27th, Russia's financial system is caught in a dangerous feedback loop. The state's need to finance the war has triggered a severe crisis of confidence, leading to a massive bank run. As banks teeter on insolvency, the Kremlin resorts to coercive measures, trapping all capital. This strategy is sacrificing the economy to sustain the war, creating a worsening cycle of public panic and state destabilization.